employers, increased ICE enforcement at work sites is coming. Let's talk about the three main types of enforcement activities and what may trigger them. I'm immigration attorney Christopher Gasson at the Gasson Law Firm in Stuart, Florida. The president has instructed ICE to enforce the immigration laws to the maximum extent. That means that ICE will be targeting not only individuals who are violating the immigration law, but employers who are suspected of violating the immigration law. There were approximately 5 times more enforcement activities under the last Trump administration than in the last administration. So it's going to be important to know what type of enforcement activities you're facing if ICE shows up. And let's talk about some things that will trigger those enforcement activities. So the first tier of enforcement activities, I like to call the lowest tier, is a Form I-9 inspection or audit by ICE Homeland Security Investigations. So that is a situation where an immigration officer will come to a work site and find out who's in charge and present them with a document informing them that they have been selected for Form I-9 inspection. They'll be given 3 days to gather and provide the I-9 forms to ICE. ICE will inspect the documents, use a forensic document examiner to look at not only the forms, but the supporting documents. And what they're looking for is consistency between documents. They want to make sure the documents are filled out correctly, that they have been maintained and updated timely, and so forth. There will be a determination whether there are technical violations, which means maybe a document wasn't filled out properly, some information might be missing or erroneous, some numbers are transcribed or whatever. So those are some technical violations. Or the government will look for substantive violations. This is where the employer hasn't followed the law. So maybe the employer or employee didn't provide the documentation used to establish an individual's authorization to work in the United States, or maybe the documentation is expired, or the I-9 forms weren't updated properly, and so forth. So these may be some more substantive violations. At the end of the day, the government will make a determination if the violations rise to the level of requiring the employer to be fined or other penalties enforced upon the employer. And the other decision that's going to be made is whether the workers who may have filled out the forms, provided the documentation, are actually still authorized to work in the United States. If there are some fraudulent documents or documents that were not valid at the time they were received or whatever, the employer may not be in trouble because he or she followed the law. However, if it turns out their employee is not authorized to work in the United States, they will be instructed to ask that employee to provide updated documentation, demonstrated their authorization to work in the United States, or they will have to fire that employee. So that's one, that's the Form I-9 inspections. The second type is what we call an administrative warrant. So this is a warrant that's not issued by the court, but it's an administrative warrant, and this is generally directed to a particular person. So ICE may have information that a particular person who is working without authorization in the United States without proper documentation is at the employer's work site, and they may come to the work site to serve that administrative warrant and pick up that employee. So the administrative warrant gives ICE opportunity to come into the public areas, but not the private areas of the business. And they are there to pick up the individual generally. But if that individual flees or runs into some of the private areas, the immigration officers can pursue this individual into those private areas to apprehend him or her. One of the challenges here is the ICE officers may be able to observe things that are unlawful, and that may cause them to be able to conduct further investigation. So the primary issue I see here is the immigration officer shows up, and then what happens is other workers who may be concerned about the presence of immigration, they start running away and things like that, which causes the ICE officers to see individuals fleeing, which may give them an opportunity to articulate a reasonable suspicion that the individuals are involved in unlawful activities, and that may give them an opportunity to conduct more investigation, do more interviews, and so forth, apprehend more people. So it's important when you're training your employees that you tell them that there's a designated person who's going to communicate with ICE, and they should not run, hide, or do anything of that nature when an ICE officer appears at the place of employment. They have no way of knowing if the ICE officer is there for them, and by running or panicking, they could create a bigger problem, not only for themselves, but their co-workers and the business as a whole. So it's important to train the employees not to run away or whatever. They may be able to assert their rights, and that's probably what they should do. They may not be required to talk to ICE. They may not be required to give consent for searches of the person. And if they are not the target of the warrant, they may express to ICE that they do not want to be there. They don't want to talk. They ask if they're free to leave, and they can exit slowly and orderly out of exits, but the running away upon the appearance of ICE will cause some problems. If you have questions about whether your business is in compliance with the immigration laws, or if you feel you need help getting your business to be in compliance with immigration laws, or you want to talk about opportunities to find a way to hire foreign nationals lawfully through some other programs like the H-2B program, please contact my team at the Gaston Law Firm. You can reach us at 772-219-0101, or you can find us on the web at www.gastonlawfirm.com. If you found this information helpful, if you believe it might be helpful to someone you know or another business person in the community, please feel free to like the information, comment, share it, so that we can help employers in the community all maintain a lawful workforce and avoid the negative consequences of ICE worksite enforcement. At the Gaston Law Firm, we are committed to helping employers and employees navigate the immigration laws and move forward with building their American futures.